Hi, I'm Bill from Enmore Audio, and today we're taking a look at the Theremin, a completely unique and mysterious contraption. Named after Russian physicist and inventor Leon Theremin, it wasn't actually intended to be a musical device. Originally, it was an experimental proximity sensor that was funded by the Soviet government. Despite these turgid beginnings, it became the world's first ever mass-produced electronic instrument by 1929. It was patented by Theremin in 1928 and sold to RCA, who put it on the market as the Theremin Vox. It was a flop, and like many commercial failures, it was unappreciated in its time. Having crept its way onto film scores, avant-garde albums, and into the hands of none other than Bob Moog, it left a mark on pop culture in more ways than you can imagine. Here are 5 influential uses of the Theremin. The instrument's entry into pop culture really began with a fellow by the name of Samuel J Hoffman. Doctor by day, Hoffman was the lone thereminist of the LA Musicians Union in the 30s and 40s. And in 1945, he caught the eye of composer Miklos Rozsa, who was working on none other than Hitchcock's Spellbound. The film became the first ever to feature a theremin in its score, springboarding Hoffman as a coveted composer. He next featured On the Day the Earth Stood Still, which was entirely electronic and featured 2 theremins. The score was hugely influential for the sci-fi genre and inspired celebrated composers like Danny Elfman. Although long forgotten amongst the rich tapestry that was the late 60s psychedelic era, Lothar and the Hand People were unique for one reason. They were the first rock band to use a theremin in its ensemble. The theremin itself was called Lothar, and the group was so enamoured they named themselves after it. The band were one of the first to record and tour using synthesizers, and were the vanguard of electronic musicians. They inspired everyone from Jimi Hendrix to the Chemical Brothers. Ironically, the most famous use of a theremin in pop music wasn't technically a theremin. Indeed, the iconic wobble heard on the Beach Boys' Good Vibrations was actually played on an electro-theremin. This slide guitar-like contraption was designed in the 50s by Paul Tanner as an easy-to-play alternative. Tanner himself performed on the track, as well as other Beach Boys classics, These Times and Wild Honey. However, he declined to tour with them in 1966, instead referring them to a particular invention of Bob Moog's. Robert Moog kicked off his lucrative career as a humble teenager building his own theremins in his father's basement. They were built from specs he found in a radio magazine, and eventually he started selling DIY theremin kits. Sold at $50 a pop, these funded his years through both college and grad school. One buyer was composer Herb Deutsch, who later introduced himself to Moog at a conference in New York. The two bonded over a vision of being able to shape sounds with your hands using synthesis, and together they developed voltage-controlled oscillators, ADSR envelope generators, and other synth modules. Of course, this formed the basis of the very first Moog synthesizer. Jimmy Page has been making the theremin his own since 1969. He popularised the sonic wave theremin, a contraption that can be plugged directly into a guitar. You can hear it in action on Whole Lotta Love, which was played on a Les Paul in conjunction with an Echoplex. The result was a wild, laser beam-like noise that squealed and howled through the song's breakdown, which when played live sounded more like a piece of avant-garde performance art. Are we missing anything from our list? Let us know.